going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome into the 48th edition of the Tuesday Track Talk, featuring your Three Stones pit crew. I'm Kellen Jackman,
I'm your tire changer Cam.
and we're down another one again this week. Yeah, it's tough to be on the podcast. You're on the beaches in Hawaii, I would suppose, but
Yeah, it's a little bit better excuse this time around.
yeah. Well, hey, I'll tell you what though, it's hot enough up here to feel like you're on the beach in Hawaii.
And unfortunately, I'm going to be in Kansas City for work tomorrow, and it's supposed to be a high of 97, so I'm not getting away from it.
No, no, it's been if you kind of hear a little bit of the buzz in the background, I'm kind of moderating the door here as the fan and the AC are on in the and I'm in the podcast room here. So
About to say I got the AC on behind me as well, so
yeah, just trying to survive the heat here. We got record high heat up here in the state of Wisconsin. Heat index pushing 105, they're talking. So um it's warm to say the least.
yep,
The best part is we dodged it on Friday night.
that we did.
It was
That we did. We
beautiful.
felt it a little bit on Saturday
Yep.
when we were at the game, and
Yep.
then I got all of it on Sunday.
Yeah. So we dodged it and we yeah, we had honestly a beautiful Friday night. Saturday was warm, but it was nice.
Yep, yep,
So,
absolutely.
well, I feel like I just saw you 48 hours ago. We might as well just jump into it,
Yeah, might as well. Might
huh?
as well.
Yeah, it's coming off of a little impromptu Green Bay Packer preseason game we did on Saturday. Friday night race. Had the opportunity to grab 2 tickets and we said, hell, why not?
Screw it. Let's go for it. Yep.
Yeah.
We'll figure it
So
out as we go.
yeah, good to be back at Lambeau.
Yep.
Always cool to be in, get in, see the Packers, and even though it was a preseason game, still cool to get back there.
Yep. Season's right around the corner.
Absolutely. Well, let's jump into the first one here. Kind of the first race recap, kind of brief one we got for you will be Lucas Oil Late Models. They had $50,000 to win 50 lap Rumble by the river at Port Royal. So one kind of note, we'll touch more on the big 50 grand on Saturday night, but one note getting into Friday night just before we touch on it. Garrett Elberson finally becomes a national tour winner. That was cool to see. They've been on the podium fairly consistently this year, and you just knew it was going to be a matter of time.
Yep.
So um super cool to see, small operation. I actually got to see when I went and picked up the two panels. I actually got to get in the shop and just see him. I was only there for 10 minutes or so. Small operation, but super down to earth and great people. So kind of been a fan of his this year, starting out at Vado in the spring. But yeah, pretty cool to see him finally get a tour win. And those first ones are always special.
Yep. And it's kind of that monkey off your back, and you kind of start putting some runs together. Given Saturday never didn't really help him at all, but nonetheless, you still get that chance to. Yep, we can do this, and we know what we need to do this.
Absolutely. Just we talk about it and we've mentioned it time and time again on this whole deal is a driver's confidence is your best friend
Yep.
in the life of racing. So
And a
cool to be
confident driver is a dangerous driver.
that is correct. So unfortunately the Gremlins, I mean, we started night one with him, we can start night two with him. Unfortunately lap four he breaks. So his promising weekend comes to a screeching halt, unfortunately, for the Roberts Motorsports 58. But honestly, the race was pretty even keel. There really was only one big dust up, and that comes with RTJ and Hudson O'Neal.
And I feel like they're not gonna leave each other alone for a while.
Yeah, and when RTJ he kind of threw it in there on him, and he got all of them. And when you saw the picture of the car, the door was wrinkled up, and ultimately that turned into a flat for Huddy, which cost him valuable track position. But yeah, it was there was a lot of take and negative give on
Yep.
that whole
Yeah.
scenario. So kind of knowing the history of the driver change and maybe just the point of push came to shove and Ricky was there to win that feature and it might have taken to go through the 71 to get it done.
And if I remember right too, or at least hearing from an interview that it was a little bit of, well, Huddy's done it to me in the past and I'm just giving a little back.
Yeah, he's kind of the race me the way you want to be raced type of scenario a little bit.
Yep.
So that's kind of was really the one big dust up in the race. That was lap 33. Well, 33 to go, I should say. And the only other caution in the race was Boom Briggs. And my oh my, he had a hell of a night on that XR 1.2 here a week ago, but um loses it right in front of JD and damn near took him out for the lead or for the win. But JD got it woed up and missed them going down the inside. And then from there, it was JD and RTJ, and they were both on the top. And with 4 to go, RTJ just made a mistake, got in the wall in 1 and 2, got her wall back up, got in the wall or cushion wall again in 3 and 4, and that was all Davenport needed to kind of secure the $50,000 payday here for the big feature. But other than that, the boys played nice. Good racing. That track is always just so damn fast.
Yep.
It's big, fast,
I
big
mean, it's
track,
those long straights.
long straights, tight corners, and then you kind of got to make your bet either on the bottom or the top, especially at Port Royal. So JD he tiptoed around the top and he was pretty much meticulous all night and just got the job done. So good race, but ultimately Davenport gets it done. RTJ, Max Blair, Devin Moran, Tim McCready, Drake Troutman, who we'll talk about here in a little bit. Hudson O'Neill, Ross Robinson, Carson Ferguson, Alex Free round out your top 10. So, couple interesting notes. First one, in the Lucas Oil, 10 of the top 11 in driver points have won an event. So they just mentioned that as he had won. So that's a pretty cool statistic for that series that the parity of the field is tight,
Yep.
to put it lightly. And kind of the other note on that is what are we? Week and a half here from getting ready for the World 100.
Yeah.
And Jonathan Davenport has got his mojo back, one might say.
And especially when he's come out and said, yeah, I've got an Eldora car that just sits in the shop and only comes out for Eldora.
And he's winning in the regular touring car. That's a scary thing for the rest of the field because
Yeah.
you don't need that man having confidence going into Eldora. So, no, but good for him. He's kind of had his ups and downs a little bit for the year, but good for that Lance and Darla Landers 49 to get a victory with Jonathan Davenport. So
Yeah.
good race. Good deal for them. So 2 nights racing for them. From one tour to the next, really. Now we'll go asphalt racing with the Cars Tour. Wake County. This one, the race itself was not quite as nice per se,
Yeah.
but I think
And
go
couldn't
ahead.
even get the weekend started, really, without
Controversy,
correct.
debate. Um,
And you know, and we'll talk about this here with the other race as well, but boy, it didn't just kind of lead up to this whole thing. I mean, it exploded with
and
this whole Hoosier tire deal.
ultimately, what it comes down to is the Hoosier tire, the new ST 1 and 2 that they brought out for the season, has gotten a lot of criticism in terms of the passing. You know, we talk about it in the Cup Series. Is it the tire? Is it the package? And well, one kind of leads to the other, and that's the conversation of it. But ultimately, what happens here is you have 19 cars show up for this race, and you have 7 different tire codes that were in the pits.
You just can't do that. I mean, that's just
To me, when you read that, you go, so are the drivers, have they had enough of this? Have the teams had enough of this that they go, okay, if everyone does something different, how are they going to tell us what to do?
Yep.
It's just that alone was crazy. You see, there's 7 different tire codes there for that race. I mean, ay, ay, ay. That was,
And to really emphasize why that colds mean a lot, look at back at Bristol when they brought out when they gave teams that other tire that they ran from last fall
yep,
that had a different code on it, but all the crews were worried about how that was going to run at Bristol, and lo and behold, it ran exactly how I expected it to. Maybe got about the same length on it, but because how old those tires were, it degraded just as fast as what the tires that were originally brought for that race. So I mean, same deal here.
yep.
Different codes are just going to run different ways.
And, you have a season on these new ST1 and 2s, but ultimately, somebody might just be better or have a better setup for the F45s, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But yeah, making headlines ultimately before cars even hit the track.
Yep.
When you
Which
hear
you
that,
never want on a race weekend.
no,
No, not
unless
those kind of headlines.
correct. You always have the surprise. Oh, we got Kevin Harvick going to run, or oh, you might have a big time of Barry or somebody like that come run. That's good headlines to have, but
Yep.
unfortunately for that series, they kind of found themselves a little bit of a pickle before cars even were on the track. And
Yeah.
ultimately, that kind of led into the race itself. I mean, the gloves are off from the get-go. It was,
It given Wake County's a small track as it is.
oh yeah,
It's you can't avoid contact.
yep,
Start with that. You can't avoid it.
right. You can't avoid it. It's just how much of it you're going to give and how much you're going to take.
And like for us, like the comparable one is Slinger, really, when it comes down to
Yeah,
just the type of racing that you get. You're gonna hit a guy, but you can't spin a guy.
yep, can't rack them. So,
Because that's the other thing too. It doesn't take it, they're not that distance to the walls, not very far.
yeah, you don't really have time to lock it down. Little places like that. So
Hmm.
ultimately, when you start getting into the race, um, kind of it was off the screen. You kind of missed it. But Deke McCaskill, he got the wall early. It was like lap 4 or 5. Well, even on the initial start, let's even start there. Your point leader Connor Hall has issues just getting up to speed, and he stacked up the whole inside. He started inside. He stacked up that whole inside line, and then when he got into one, he kind of ran up the track and almost washed that second line out of the groove as
Yeah.
well. So lap 1, turn 1, you kind of have chaos already. And that just kind of set the tone for the rest of the night. And lap 4, it was kind of off the screen, like I mentioned. Deke McCaskill, he gets into the wall early. He's done. And in that same kind of instant, that was in 3. And turn 1 and 2, you have Lapsovich who has trouble as well. So both just kind of having issues early. And then from there, Brent Cruz, he grabbed the lead with 84 to go. They were just kind of riding a little bit, and then another caution out again with the Junior Motorsports 8 just broke.
Yeah.
You could tell, you could see it. It was kind of sparking a little bit, and they were talking about air pressures, and the next thing you know, he pulled up lame in 3 and 4, and that was kind of the start of the chaos, and really, and um
That
Robusto, go ahead.
that car, I was gonna say that car has been a little hit or miss
Yeah,
this year.
yeah, for sure.
I don't know, I'm looking at it here. I mean, given they've got in 11 starts, they got 8 top 10, 7 top 5. So I mean, it's pretty consistent, but I mean, they're either up front or they're not
Struggle.
there at all.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. And just this one, you really ain't much you can do when you break.
Yep.
Unfortunately, that's one of
Which I
those.
think is really the first break for that 8 car this year.
Yeah. So that again kind of regroups the field. That leaves you with everyone back together again, and ultimately Cruz kind of jumped out again a little bit on the restart, but Robusto, Butterbean, and Landon Lewis, boy, those three went at it there for probably 8 or 10 laps, and it was you got a fender, you got in line, you gave them the fender, and then all of a sudden Queen comes in and they were kind of chopping each other a little bit. Well, then he kind of gets a piece of the action, so he gets to stick his nose in there. Some by his own doing, some by his not. But it
Yeah.
was man, the gloves were off with that, and then they kind of rough each other up a little bit, and then Labsovich got his track position back and got in there. Um, and they went at it, and then ultimately Landon Huffman kind of spun on his own, but as he stated on his socials that the rear brakes locked up on that ride. So again, mechanical gremlins locks them up, spins, and it regroups the field. Um, really from the end, it was it coming down the end, it was the two KHI teammates that were just they were gonna play bumper tag for the lead, and then Robusto and Cruz kind of got into it, and ultimately what ends up happening is Brent Cruz gets turned and backed into the fence. So that kind of took a turn for his points battle to get himself back into the championship run in there a little bit, and take some pretty significant rear damage. And then you had a late restart, and Landon Lewis, when you get to pick and start on the inside there, you get to call the shot. Then when you take off, good luck trying to catch them.
Yep.
So Landon Lewis ultimately gets the win. That is the first win for the KHI 62 on the Cars Tour this year.
That stuck. I think if I remember right, there was one,
Yes.
thought it was a barrier race.
Yep.
Oh, race that barrier one and they got DQ'd.
Yes. So one that cleared
Sticks.
cleared the tech shed.
Yep.
So ultimately, when you look at your top five, Landon Lewis, Trayton Lapsovich, Butterbean Queen, Minnie Tyrell, and then Millington rounds out your top five. So
I know we talked bring this up real quick. I know we talked about this track being very you can't avoid the contact, but it's also, we go back to the Austin Dillon Richmond deal. It's a fine art of moving a guy by hitting him and then just downright wrecking him.
yep, for sure. It's
And it's just
and they were talking about on the broadcast, when you move somebody like that, you got to have somebody behind you to fill the hole.
yep.
You can't you can't move somebody and have 2 or 3 or 4 car lengths, let them get in behind you, because you can pretty much guarantee if you do it in 1 and 2, you're going to get it back in 3 and 4.
Yep, exactly. And it's just, how many bump and runs does it take in order to just be like, yeah, we just can't do this anymore.
Well, that's kind of been the question around the Cars Tour a little bit this year, I'd have to think. Well,
Eh,
what, how much rough is too rough?
It's all, and I hate to bash the Cars Tour because they put on great races, but it's just every race you get a bump and run incident that ends up putting a guy in a wall.
Yep. Yeah. They do, and ultimately they have good drivers in that series.
Yep, absolutely,
They have really
absolutely.
good drivers, and they
I
do
mean,
have a good package. It's
you
just
had you have obviously Cars Squaffles run a few races in the Xfinity series. You had Connor Hall run a truck race recently.
you
Queen ran a truck race,
yeah, 1 or 2. Yep.
and then I don't remember if Hoffman did or not.
No, I don't think he did.
I don't think he did either. But I mean, you've had guys that you're regulars in the car series, or at least running late model stocks, are making appearances.
Yeah, in NASCAR's Big Three.
Yep.
So it shows that there are talented race car drivers in that series. But again, you start to wonder, is that ST1 and ST2, knowing that you can't pass,
You got to make your own.
is there a little bit more urgency there than what would be? And we'll find out here in Friday night um what changes. But yeah, it's just been little bit rough.
Yeah.
You and let's be honest, we have those up here too. We,
It was Kakana was one of those examples.
e-
Prime example of it.
everyone's got them here and there. It's how many do you have and how consistent does it happen?
Correct.
That's what it comes down to. So
Yep.
we'll call a spade a spade. We've had a few up here in what we consider our premier tour up here. So um that's for sure as well. But yeah, just and you really just hope because you have some smaller teams that don't have big budgets to do this that we can get this sorted out, that guys like that can continue to run and not feel like they're going to a track going, if we get racked tonight, we're going to be done for
Yep.
a month or 2 months, or we're going to miss half the season. Like that's the unfortunate part of what can sometimes be the collateral of nothing of your own doing. So yeah, but ultimately got the race in, and that last 5 lap run there was good. So all right, from the Cars Tour right to our, as we consider our premier late model tour up here, super late model tour in the great Midwest. We had the Howie Lettow Classic at Madison International with the Midwest Tour. Initial thoughts?
Well, first off, Howie Lettow, one of the greatest guys to turn wrenches on a race car in the Midwest. Let's just start with that.
Yep, for sure.
So very respectable race. Madison, honestly, it was a very like entry list came out initially. We had 26, cool, and then we had some guys that jumped onto the entry list, which was awesome. We had more cars jump in, had some surprises, but then like when we were sitting there on Friday, we were kind of going through our radio sheets, like, well, he's not here, and he's not here, and he's not there, and we're seeing a little bit of that
Yep,
this year. Given I think Nason was the obvious one to not be there just because he ran uh Owasso, I think is how you pronounce it.
yep,
He was there for that race. So
yep.
I think that was warranted.
Yeah, of course. I mean, he's in contention, not necessarily title contention, but he's in a decent points battle. And you had a few of the guys in the top 10 that weren't going to run that race. So that was an opportunity for him to gain points and move himself up in that national tour point standing. So
Yep.
he said at the beginning of the year he was committed to the tour. When the reschedule came out, he even said that, the kids are racing. I thought about it, but here I am.
Yep. So
So
I mean, otherwise it was, it was going to be a stout field. Madison's always raced pretty good. I didn't realize that they had sprayed the second lane either until
yeah,
you had brought it up.
yep.
So it's just, you go into it, and especially with Majeski, he's starting in the back. You kind of figure you're gonna have a pretty damn good race on your hands.
And really we did. We
Yep.
had we had one caution. It was a single car spin by himself. Um, you can kind of call it 2 and 1. Coming to the green, Schaefer has a flat right front from the lead.
Which, he got that initial lead from starting on the pole, and we're starting on the front, I should say, and he was able to take off and keep that lead.
Yep. So it was just and again, luckily you didn't smash up a bunch of cars on that restart as the whole field's kind of checked up because he's inside row one and kind of pulls up lame. So
Yep.
good on everyone there to kind of keep everything organized. But basically from there on out, it kind of just strung out and settled out. And again, kind of the theme of tires this year from NASCAR down to your late model ranks. There wasn't a ton of passing.
Nope.
It was just
And and it was a lot. It almost looked like you got your guys could get up to him. There was a little bit of arrow because Madison does have a little bit of arrow play into it, which is how fast and how big it is.
yep,
And it's just the guys kind of stalled.
yep.
Is kind of what it ended up being.
And we talk about Majeski starting at the tail. He kind of was, I think, the example for that, for as dominant as he's been. That
The restarts is where he got his money.
yep. So, yeah, once guys kind of got single filed out, it was you had your 2 or 3 car battles here and there. Lap traffic helped, um, kind of helped the leaders get together a little bit.
Yep.
Um, no rough, no foul play, just leaders coming up on lap traffic, having to run the outside, didn't want to. That gave Summers the chance to close in on zero a little bit. But ultimately just wasn't quite enough to get there. It just that and that was the same throughout the field from second to third, third to fourth. That guys could get there, but the pass was going to be tough.
Yep.
So
Like we were saying, you were saying, Johnson got kind of caught in that lap traffic,
yeah,
took one, just made a mistake as far, not necessarily a mistake, but just had a hard time getting around said lap car. Z was able to catch up with them, ultimately get side by side with them, and
yeah,
then it's just a matter of preferred lane.
yeah, yeah. And when that second groove, it held on for a little while, but you couldn't be out there real long.
Correct.
You had to be efficient and in your money slot to make your passes and get back down to the bottom.
Yep.
But
And even then, like again with those long runs, I mean, those tires probably just got so freaking hot that you couldn't get anywhere.
yep, and it starts to get a little greasy.
Yep.
But I mean, honestly, when we talk about the Midwest Tour, a good, respectable race.
And again, especially coming off of Kakana a handful of weeks ago, and we're getting this little bit of stretch of now we're getting back to what we're known for, and not dumping each other and racing each other hard. Still, it's just we're getting it back to where we feel like we should be, racing wise.
Yeah, for sure. And you have to think in the back of a few guys' minds who are going to run for the title for the tour. It's going to have to be they're racing again on Saturday night. So you go from a Friday night to the following Saturday. You don't really have time to tear the thing apart and put it back together to be ready to go.
Yep.
And on top of being ready to go, being competitive and dialed in for what's going to be a big payday on Saturday. That you just got to keep her in order. It's a live to fight another day type of scenario. So,
Yep.
but no, I mean, honestly, we had talked about it as we were leaving. Just a good classic Midwest Tour race. Passing was there in certain points and not in others, but ultimately, we single wrinkled race car from that feature.
Yep.
And that's even with the spin and the flat, that's something you can hang your hat on and go, we can go live to fight another day. So that was really, really good to see as well that you didn't end up with a bunch of torn up race cars.
Yep.
So I also believe I think all 26 finished the race.
No, because Schaefer pulled off.
Pulled off, did he?
Yep. Hold on, I'm looking it up right now, actually.
I was gonna say because I felt like we were
Siegemann pulled off, Hill pulled off, Berger pulled off, Shear pulled off early. So 19, possibly 21, call it 21, finished the race.
okay. But again, not torn up race cars.
Correct. 21 of the 26 finished the race.
Yeah.
And again, Shear, never really heard why he pulled off. Siegemann and Hill, I think they just pulled off because they weren't competitive. I think
Yep.
Berge had a mechanical issue, and then Schaefer had his tire issue.
Yeah. Yeah. I was unfortunate for Schaefer.
Yeah, he had a fast car.
He had a good car, qualified well, started on the front row. He was certainly coming to lap 85 or 90 was going to have a say about who was going to win that race.
Yep.
Unfortunate turn for him. But so when you look at the list itself in terms of the finish, Dalton Zier just had a really good car. He ends up winning the race. Gabe Summers, Casey Johnson, Justin Mondyke, James Lynch, Andy Jones, Luke Fenhouse, Ty Majeski, Levon Vandergeest, Max Kaler, Jacob Gady, and Jeff Storm. That's your top 12. It's just kind of a notable grouping there to mention in terms of the finish. So, I list the top 12 for this particular reason. Jeff Storm, his Facebook stuff is good. He's very animated.
He's animated, but he's very he doesn't hide a lot of stuff either.
He's honest.
Yep.
He's a straight shooter. He's going to tell you how it is and what he thinks, and you're either going to really love him for it or you're not going to like it.
Yep.
And this kind of ties into our last race recap as well. He just, let's be honest, he put Hoosier on blast
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when I think he made it a point to stand in his backyard, which he's usually doing it from his shop
with the car.
with the car. And he made it a point to do it in his backyard because he pointed at his burn pile and said, that's exactly where the T1s and T2s can go.
Yeah. Yeah, that was good. And we should have, I felt like we maybe should have seen some of this coming, and even Gabe Summers in his post-race interview standing on the podium said, these tires don't allow us to do anything.
Yep.
So, and you listen to his video and you feel for some of these guys because he was a victim of it at the Dells earlier in the season. You're
Yep.
a top 3 car in both practice sessions. The only thing you change is a set of sticker tires,
And it's a
and you
completely
end
different
up
car.
at the bottom of the chart in qualifying. Like, how he just made a very good point. And how do you even adjust on a car like that? Then how do you even, as he would even say, how do we even work on our shit?
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's just the
And
variability in it is just out of control.
and I actually got to thinking about this when I was coming home from work today was I don't remember times at any of our tracks up here where we had to spray a second lane.
That's in the last
Dells
and
has done it a couple times. I think Madison, this is the first time that Madison did it. Golden Sands, I know, has done it a couple times.
you're starting to see it more frequently.
And there's why do you have to spray a second lane
That becomes the
when
question.
you haven't had to do it for years?
Yep. Yep. There's somebody with some intel somewhere that's, because let's be honest, Greg McCarnes, he's not going to miss it.
No, and he's not going to let things get too out of hand either. He's going to step in when he needs to.
So that, as somebody who's run the Midwest Tour, he will have every single variable accounted for that he can, and he will put on the best show, the best experience for the fans. He will do everything to a T. And it's obviously come to a point where he's had to make a decision to start spraying.
Yep.
So yeah, there's definitely, you have to know there's some intel somewhere that's brought them to this point to have to make this decision to spray. So, Stormy even went on a limb and he mentioned the Cars Tour as well.
Yeah.
Like, what are we? He just said, what are we doing? So, yeah, to say he didn't mince words, he put it out there, and he said, you know how to get a hold of me, call me. I'd love to talk to you.
Yep.
So that's, and unfortunately he even mentioned, he goes, I'm getting to the end here. You're making this decision for me to hang it up really easy. So you hate that's the part you hate to hear.
Yeah, for sure.
And he starts to mention that part of it, and that being a root cause of it. That starts to raise alarm, because now you're starting to talk car count issues.
Yep.
So yeah, tires are the buzz right now. Everywhere from NASCAR down, they're the buzz right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's been wild this year.
To say the least.
So no, good. I think it's worth a mention as well. Midwest Truck Series also put
Yep.
on a really good feature. They had a few that got tangled up.
Wrecked a few cars pretty hard.
You know,
Daniel Bain wrecked really hard. Looking for maybe a little bit of help to get up and running again.
She even mentioned they'll be done until Oktoberfest.
Yep.
So they're talking the middle of October to get that rig back together. But Brandon Reichenberger extending his point lead.
Yep. 3 wins.
Yeah.
And advances to the finals for the shootout challenge.
Yep.
That little
So
bracket challenge that they're doing.
Yeah, they'll determine that this weekend. It's him and Eugene Gregorich for
Yep.
an additional $700, I think they said.
Yep.
So good for him. It's a good run for him.
Absolutely.
So he's had a really, really good year.
Yeah, for sure.
So any final thoughts?
No, I mean, I think we're heading to a topic that or a segment that's kind of stuck for a little while now.
Yeah,
And there's a lot on this one this time around.
it was really full last week and we're back at it again this week.
Yeah. But I tell you what, though, we had a discussion last week about a certain organization, and boy, did they make some moves this time around too.
Yeah, so going ahead and jumping into our, I don't know, this one might be 25 minutes of racing fun facts here. We get into kind of the latent breaking news of what's been driver changes, tire conversations, all the above. Zane Smith and Trackhouse mutually parting ways. And if you watched last week's episode, you just had that bone in your body that says we should talk about this.
Yep.
And what, 72 hours later, we got a driver change, a mutually
Yep.
parting ways. That was yeah, and
You could have timed it up better.
correct. And do we think anyone saw that coming? Yes and
You
no.
had to think a certain scenario had to play out,
Yeah,
just not necessarily in that way. And
correct.
even with that driver.
Yeah. And again, we had talked about it last week. At some point, your driver corral gets a little backed up.
Yep.
So there's so many guys you can contract to drive so many cars for different people before they get a little frustrated. Or they just
Yep.
have no room for them anymore, ultimately. I mean, we talked about Trackhouse. They have what's going to be now 3 cup cars, no Xfinity or truck drivers or programs. They're leasing guys
Not of their
to
own, at least.
right, not their own programs.
Yep.
So they're leasing their drivers to other organizations to drive for them.
Yep.
So yeah, Zane Smith and Trackhouse at the end of the year are mutually parting ways.
And I
And
mean that in its own right pretty much opens up the when you heard that, it's like, well, then that possible third time cup ride is almost all but confirmed with SVG jumping to Trackhouse, which ultimately was the case. And with the interesting fact of him driving the 88 full time.
yeah, with the grace of Dale Jr. and Hendrick Motorsports.
Yep.
So it
Which
wasn't
when we were at the game on Saturday, we saw Junior get involved of I think everybody's really gonna like this. I mean, we were sitting there
baffled. I,
just throwing out every scenario. What the hell could he be talking about?
yeah, yeah. Junior stirred the conversation up, and we had talked about it. He did it perfectly. He didn't stir anything up.
Yep.
He didn't leak any information. He just said, "This is going to be fun. I'm excited
Yep.
for this, and you guys should be too."
It got people curious.
He piqued our interest awfully quick.
We always said, and we said that Trackhouse never has the flair for their announcements,
Yep.
and they did it again.
They're so good at not giving up their ghost on any of it.
Correct.
Unless you're
I mean,
directly
everybody
related.
everybody had a when they announced that they were doing a driver announcement, everybody figured it was SVG. I mean, that was just the
Well,
common sense one. But everything
logical.
else after that, nope, didn't know about.
Yep. And again, talk about the charter situation. Clears the air on another piece of that. Dave bought one of the charters.
Again, that's all but confirmed for the most part.
Yep.
Um, Obviously, you assume it came from SHR. How much do they sell it for? I don't know.
At this point, nobody seems to know.
Yeah,
They've been very, I don't know, murky about the whole thing. They just go, "Oh, here we are."
and all they really said was that SVG will drive a third full-time chartered car. That's all you got out of
it. Well, it wasn't like, oh, well, Trackhouse bought the charter. It was just, oh, he's going to the 88 full time. It's like,
Yep.
you want to expand on that for the rest of us, please?
Yeah. Now we'll talk about SVG, which I mean, rightfully so. I mean, it's the driver announcement of SVG. It should force overshadow anything else, or nothing else should overshadow that.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at his Xfinity, yes, he struggled on the ovals a little bit. Uh, you could
And
also say that,
now, and I mentioned this to you too. Now that we're hitting that second round, or we're going back to tracks for a second time,
yep,
and with him getting more cup rides to end the year out,
yep,
that's where you take every opportunity you can learn. Honestly, it's you just got to make the laps is ultimately what it comes down to now.
yep. Yeah, you got to start building a logbook for these tracks that you go to, and you go, all right, this is where I like to run. This is where I can make speed. These are the things I can't do.
Yep.
So yeah, so he'll run 7 of the last 12 cup races for Colleague, in their 16 to finish out the year. So
Yep.
heavy dose of preparation for a full-time venture for him next year.
Yep.
So
And speaking of colleague, the other piece kind of fell, Pulse piece fell for them as well with Daniel Dye getting introduced into the 10 full time for colleague next year.
yeah, again, kind of a surprise.
Yep.
There was heavy rumors around Christian Eckes.
Yep.
Um, Now there's a car open there yet. Who's to say that he doesn't find himself there yet? Anyways, but I think when you talk about drivers that were looking to make the move and staying within the Chevy organization, he was one that was going to have himself in the conversation with the truck season he's had for sure.
And this kind of brings up two things. One, there was rumors earlier that Trackhouse might have been merging, or sorry, Colleague was merging with Trackhouse, or Trackhouse was buying out Colleague. I think that all but puts that to rest
Yep.
if they're introducing drivers.
Yep.
And two, you still have Daniel Hemrick kind of unsure for next year.
Yes. Yeah, that's kind of they've obviously announced Dinger going again in the 16 full time next year. Um, but yeah, it's Hemrick's kind of in limbo now a little bit. So
Yep.
yeah, it's interesting. And kind of the other one, I don't know if I'd sent this in the group or not, but potentially linked to the additional front row car was potentially Christian Eckes.
Yep. And I even brought up the fact that Zane Smith and Front Row obviously work together in the truck series.
Yep.
Who's to say that they get that partnership back going?
Yep. And it's, I mean, you don't want to, we can speculate a little bit here. The 7 is still open.
Yep.
There's two guys right there that I think have built a resume that could vie for pending the funding part to bring that with them. That could find themselves, as Spire has said, they'll have 3 young guns in their stable. So I
And
don't
like
know.
I said, we got obviously Justin Haley has been rumored to go into that car,
You
but he's also again come out and said that he's committed to Rick Ware.
know, yeah. A couple curveballs that we potentially were expecting but weren't.
Yeah.
And again, they're all kind of interconnected per se. So yeah, stay tuned for that call. We'll have a few driver announcements coming up as well as they kind of get their organization settled with um what their plan is going forward. Jumping down. Um Kevin Harvick announced about noon today or so on Monday. Kevin Harvick is gonna go pro late model racing in the Cars Tour at Florence in the 62, but for Rackley War. So interesting team there being KHI
Yep.
itself. Uh
And you know, does we just saw earlier this week or last week, Keelan was getting fitted in what looked like a full-size stock car.
Yep. Had the little chassis, the A-frame had the, or
Yep.
that bar had the Cars Tour Pro Late Model logo on it.
Yep.
So who's to say?
Connecting the dots. Who's to
Hey,
say Dad's shaking it down?
Dad's shaking it down, but he also might be shaking it down on this F45 tire again
Yeah.
as part of the ownership group of the Cars Tour.
Yep.
So
Which
now,
Cars Tour, to that point, had said, yep, we're going back to the 45s for Florence.
only for the late model stocks.
Sure.
So I read that, I kind of did a little digging on that. So they're only going to the F45s for the late model stocks. The
Which is your
pro,
premier tour for those guys.
yep, the pros will continue to run the ST1 and tubes.
Hmm.
I don't even know what
Yeah,
to do with that conversation.
that's it. And that could be something too where, again, if you have 9 different codes showing up for a late model stock tour race and the guys are coming in with their tires, who's to say this was just to keep them happy for the time being?
True. Yeah. At the end of the day, you don't have a tour if you don't have cars.
Correct.
And if you have guys that are frustrated and are not going to show up because of the situation, then the tour finds himself in a very tricky situation.
The only thing that's better than winning money is not spending any at all.
Yep. And it takes spending it to get to winning
Correct.
it. So
Correct.
I yeah, it's very, very interesting. So you got the next one here?
Uh, I guess it depends on where our next one is.
Well, go ahead, fire away.
Drake Troutman kind of sprung some news on us today, Monday as well. He's going to go part-time 2024 with Viper Big Frog MS.
Yep.
And we're starting to see a trend, and this is another thing that we talked about, coincidentally enough, at the game. I think we talked about more racing than we did the game, honestly. But
Yep.
another Longhorn to Rocket swap.
Yep.
And notably, again, that XR 1.2.
Yep.
So is this another pull at Rocket kind of building their driving lineup and having a say as far as, well, Longhorn's not going to dominate anymore. We're going to come back.
And Mark Richards, he said when he started to talk about this 1.2, his cars chassis per se usually run in a 9 to 10 year cycle. Well, this is year number 9 for that XR1.
Yep.
And I think when you look at where Longhorn has been of late, they were going to have to find something somewhere to get some drivers back in their camp. And not that they certainly haven't been competitive, but to get back to where they want to
Hard
be
counts.
chassis builder. Yeah, for sure. At
You
the
have
end,
that even split of Longhorns and Rockets.
yeah, at the end of the day, man, to have a chassis business, you got to sell chassis.
Yep.
So yeah, it's a kind of that was a little bit of a surprise. So he's gonna step away. He'll start right away next week, with Castrol and the World. So that's
Yep.
where they're headed for their debut with that new pairing in Troutman and Big Frog.
Yep.
So headed down, kind of jumping around a little bit. We're gonna go back to, I guess you could call this NASCAR news, I guess, per se. Kyle Larson announced that he's teaming up with JPM for 3 races in Australia at Perth Motorplex.
Motorplex, which is basically going to be that high limit promotion.
Yep. So he's announced that he's got the ride for those 3 races there as well. And the brother-in-law had a little he was in the conversation of facilitating the alignment.
Yeah,
So
because and I might be lacking the knowledge on this, but I don't think Silva has taken a car down there in years past, and Larson has always either just not gone, been a spectator, or he's rode for somebody else. So
yeah. So and I think when you talk about the undertaking of going all the way down to Australia, I'm gonna assume we're gonna have more announcements like this. That who's to say that JPM might say we'll put together a second car and we'll find another driver that
Yep.
wants to come run these three races, somebody like a Corey Day.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
Absolutely.
it's kind of the first big one, but I would say we could most likely expect that we'll start to hear some more announcements like this for the Australia swing for what will be the high limit exhibition stuff.
Yeah, and again, now that you got high limit involved, I mean, you got to figure that you're going to get obviously a few of the high rollers to come in, but now that high limit has really made the name for themselves too, it's got a little bit of backing. Not that weekend over there was already great as it is. It's a
Yep.
big deal of sprint car racing, especially over there, but the high limit name just adds to it.
Yep. We could see there's a handful you could expect, and I would names in there that I would be willing to throw out. Obviously, Brad Sweet's facilitating these deals already.
Yep.
Uh, I would I would expect a Rico,
Yep.
Brad Sweet.
I know Rico's done in the past. Obviously, McFadden and Madsen, with that being their home territory.
Yep,
Goodyear, who's been running Silva's car uh this
yep.
weekend out in Cali. I would expect him to be down there.
I I'm just gonna tell you, Corey Day, I think is gonna find his way down there as well.
Oh, absolutely. I
I
wouldn't put it past you one bit.
Side note, he wins this weekend. What are you gonna do with the money? He wins 100 grand. Oh, probably pay taxes. Got an 18-year-old kid going, what do you spend your paycheck on? Oh, probably taxes.
Yeah,
But yeah, I would say this is kind of the first chip to fall for what
they're setting up. Yep.
you expect some significant driver announcements for the Australian swing for the high
Yep.
limit series. So
Um, I'm gonna take this Milwaukee one just because I was there, obviously. News kind of broke from Dave Kalaman of the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. Uh, it's almost all but confirmed on NASCAR's side of things that the Truck Series will not be back at Milwaukee next year. Reading into the article, it sounded like it was a little bit of a TV deal, and especially on the IndyCar side. Um, with IndyCar jumping to Fox next year, and obviously Fox having football on their schedule, they got to, kind of play around with their schedule. The IndyCar race got moved up a weekend, i.e., got moved into the NASCAR truck weekend, and the big deal with um, Sargent and NASCAR was that they signed that contract with date equity in mind. So it always be that particular weekend is
yeah,
what it would have been. And now that you got IndyCar there on that same weekend, it kind of booted them from the weekend.
yeah. So kind of for us, you hate to see it, but the dominoes have kind of fallen to that's kind of the connecting the dots of the pieces of what you're hearing in terms of
Yep.
that going
It's
forward.
not that it's not that the trucks are completely ruled out of run in Milwaukee. It's just some stuff's got to get worked on for them to get back again.
Yeah, for sure. So kind of the last one jumping into or wrapping up with the NASCAR side of things is ruling today, the Austin Dillon penalty has been upheld. So there will be
Which I
no
think was pretty
change.
well expected.
Yeah, especially that initial appeal, them having to go to a second appeal. And, unfortunately, when you listen to them talk about it, like Austin Dillon's crew chief, they come out and said he spent 80% of his time that he usually was using to get ready for the coming week to put together pieces for this appeal.
Yeah.
So it's been a not only a hefty financial investment, but an investment in the man hours that could be deterrent of you're on track the following week.
And especially, obviously going into Daytona where they've won twice before, obviously there, and
Yeah.
are ultimately in that position where they're needed to win to get in again.
Yep. Yep. They have the win sticker, but not the playoff lock to go with.
Correct.
So yeah, I would agree. You would expect that to stay that way, especially knowing how the first appeal went.
Yep. So,
So
real quick one. My grandpa actually went to talk to Greg McCarnes when we were at Madison real quick. Just shook his hand, said thank you for refunding the tickets from Grundy. and that whole deal.
Yep.
And McCarran's dropped this fact, and my numbers might be wrong, but I think McCarran said he's currently at 216 tracks in the country that he's visited, and he's hoping to get to 220 by the end of the year.
Holy crap.
He had a name for it, like track tour or something like that, but he had a name for it. He's like, yeah, I'm hoping to hit 220 this year. Some things need to work out, but
Wow.
I just want to drop that little tidbit on you.
As we're talking about mid to low double digits.
I'm at 28.
I
I'm sitting at 28.
I haven't quite counted in a while, but I'm probably
Almost to 10?
9, 10,
Yeah.
somewhere in there. The Good Lord. That's wild.
man gets around.
Yeah. All right. Well, from one tour to the next, I feel like this is kind of our last uh big race recap in terms of talking about races from the previous weekend in what's been the penultimate race of the regular season for the Cup Series. Um Saturday night under the lights at Daytona. Side note,
That just sounds good to start with.
I love that vibe. The under the lights finishing. Yeah. I
Yep.
I dig the night Daytona race.
Yep.
Now, love the Daytona 500. Middle of the day kicks off the season. The aura around that, you can't change that, but
Yep.
under the lights just gives it a little different feel.
But you know, and I mentioned this early at one point in time too. I might have been when we were making our schedules. It You go to Daytona, and it is two completely different races. Obviously, you got the Daytona 500 and the grand, spectacle that is.
Yep.
And then you've got the Coke Zero 400, which, obviously last year was the playoff cutoff race that expected to be the playoff cutoff race next year. Um, but you come into this race with a completely different vibe off it. And that's what you should expect when you go to a racetrack twice. It should be two completely different races.
Yep. Two different attitudes approaching the race, two different feels around the track, day and night.
Yep.
That alone. You're going there a second time, but it has a kind of a coming to the racetrack for the first time type of feel.
And the best way I can describe it, Daytona 500, you bring me the trophy or bring me the steering wheel.
Yep.
There is no in between.
Yep.
Here, yes, you want to go for the win, but you got to get a good points day out of it.
Yeah. Especially
This is where you can gain points.
Yeah. And no, ultimately, the way this shook out, we ended up seeing that
Yeah.
big time.
Yep.
So getting into the race details itself, really everyone just they rode, but they didn't. They ran 3 wide for a long time in stage one, but we didn't wreck anything.
And they weren't making the big blocks or the
Yep.
the quick cuts to make a pass or something like that. They got 3 wide and they just let the runs do their thing.
Yep. Yeah, it's you had guys kind of shuffling kind of up towards the front there a little bit, but they weren't egregious. It was just you get pushed out. Oh, there's a Chevy on the bottom. I'm going to shuffle down and get in with my manufacturer.
Yep.
It was just stuff that you had 2 car lengths to make a move that you weren't in danger of stacking the line. Just get out in front, and they knew it was coming. We were ready for it.
And especially when you knew you didn't have to do a green flag stop.
Yep.
You could run the stage.
Yep.
It was just we need to get through the stage. We'll get our points, live to fight another 100 laps.
Yep. For sure. So really kind of played nice at stage one, but then ultimately stage two, all hell kind of broke loose there.
Yeah. Yeah, you had that first initial one where you saw Chastain get sideways, and again, right in the middle of the pack, just got a bump kind of wrong and
Yep.
gathered everybody up.
Yeah, it was ultimately 18 cars is what they counted were involved in that wreck. You had some favorites take some damage in that one.
About to say Hamlin.
Hamlin was done. You had the likes of Reddick was involved in that one. You had some hammers that you were going to have race favorites that, like I said, most of them were able to continue, but once you're wounded at that place, you're you're kind of in trouble because when help's coming, help doesn't want to help you when you don't have the speed to be able to do that.
Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson were also in it in varying degrees. That was the one that LaJoy, uh, again, that was tight quarter racing there.
Yeah. So that kind of took out a lot of your favorites, but then from there, I mean, you hate to see it, and Dale Jr. just said a lot of this is the consequence of
Going fast.
going fast. This is where you kind of started to see the big ones, and the 34 kind of gets kind of pushed wrong in the right rear going into one, and he got literally turned in front of the entire field.
Yep.
And that car left the ground but came down on all fours.
And for that one, that was, I mean, you've seen it before where you get the car sideways, you get the car pushing them, and it's just as a matter of only it takes a matter of an instant for that car to lift. So I
Yep.
think that one's hard to avoid.
Yep.
It's just too many factors going in play, but you can't science that one out.
No. And there was a lot of talk after that wreck. There was a lot of talk about that additional fin that NASCAR put on there, and
Yep.
we don't know if that was the sole reason that car came down
The
right
way it
side up
did.
the way it
Yep.
should, but you could to a certain degree say it helped.
Yep.
So yeah, McDowell gets turned in front of the field and comes down the track, and Joey Logano puts the nose right in the door of the car, and all hell broke loose.
One thing that I not necessarily got overlooked, but something that it could have been a lot worse than what it was, how close McDowell's rear end got to hitting Bowman's window net. I mean, that hit right behind him on that B post.
Yeah. And then you saw the picture of the car after the race that basically was the window was missing, the quarter was pretty much missing, and it was bare bond body on that car.
What the hell did Bowman tweet?
Oh God.
I'll look it up right now.
Okay. Because he had a good one
He
after.
played on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey Siri, remind us to refill the beer bond on the pit box.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, it from the top of the car all the way down to the side skirt had bear bond
Yep.
from the B post back.
Yeah, that was what would have been the rear bumper of the 34 that contacted square to the right behind the driver's seat of the
Yep.
48 and just tried to shear everything off of that car.
Yep.
So we are glad that bumper did not end up in that window net.
Exactly.
Because that could have been a very, very scary situation with that as well.
Exactly.
But from there we kind of got settled out again. We made some more laps, and then again, kind of two, they say unrelated instance, but I find it hard to believe that they weren't. With Eric Jones getting a flat, and then SVG. Holy Christ, did that thing blow up?
It's been a long time since I've seen a NASCAR engine blow that way.
That thing blew up in a
Grenaded.
massive way. That was like the guys that were behind him were like checking up because you can't see where you're going.
Yep.
Type of scenario. That thing, I mean, when you watch a YouTube channel, they joke about shooting the rods out of the bottom or a piston out the bottom. That thing had to have done all of that, because then you pulled on a pit road and the damn thing was on fire.
Yep. Out of the pipes.
Yep.
I just wonder if, they said it wasn't related, but something from Jones had gone through the radiator or punctured a hole in the nose and just.
Yeah, I find it hard to believe that they weren't.
And expect Chevy is known to build solid motors.
Yep.
You almost never see a Chevy motor blow up.
Yep.
And especially in that fashion.
Yeah.
Christ, we haven't even seen Toyota's had their fair share of engine issues, and we haven't even seen one of them blow up like that.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's true very well. The TRD part, they've had engines expire, but they're more a gradual I'm down power. We've got a problem. Let's
Honestly, the
try
most
to look at
egregious
it.
one was Hamlin's.
Yeah.
That was probably the most egregious one at Sonoma.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. That was yeah, that thing blew up in a massive, massive way.
Yeah.
Speaking of Hamlin, I don't did we mention that last week with his motor penalty?
No,
I
no,
don't
we
think
did
we did.
not.
That's actually let's talk about that just for a split second. Um, Self-imposed Toyota issue with the motors and rebuilding it and not being a sealed motor.
Well,
Um,
not get inspected before it got torn apart.
yep, and that cost him dearly,
Yep.
dearly, dearly in the playoff points. He went from what they say fourth to eighth in the matter of a race
Yep.
with penalty. I gotta look and see because that was
While you look that up, obviously Gabe Hart got fined as well. But I think the 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 one bright side of this, not bright side, but I think the one that I was glad that I didn't see happen was that Gabe Hart got suspended. I was glad that he did not because it wasn't his doing. That was purely on TRD, and they took claim to it.
yep,
You just had the monetary fine and the points fine to Hamlin. And again, TRD owned up to it. They got together with Hamlin and Gabe Hart and Gibbs and had that meeting to take blame for it before the announcement came out.
yeah, yep.
I
So
think it was like 75 points and
75 points and 10 playoff points, and then
basically it stripped the Bristol win because that's where they figured the engine came from.
yep, and then Gabe Hart was fined $100,000. So yeah, the
Which
team
we
this
now know how we wish now know thanks to Logano how those fines are paid.
yeah. The team disassembled the Bristol winning engine before being torn down after its next scheduled use.
Mm-hmm.
TRD self-reported the violation.
Yep.
So yeah, momentum going wrong for the 11 camp.
Yep.
Fortunately, he finds himself in the middle of that big wreck in the first one. He's night's done.
Yep.
So doesn't even really have an opportunity to even really get himself gathered up in that scenario. So yeah, I just thought of that as I was looking at our notes from last week. Going, man, we didn't even mention that. That was a big one. Um, and then ultimately it comes down to the spec sadly spectacular one with Josh Berry.
2 weeks in a row. It's
And
just that one too. It was like when we watched the slow mo of it, he got obviously he got sideways.
you
And
know,
it was as soon as you saw that car lift after he went over the seam of the two concrete patches. I mean, that's it just caught.
yep.
You
Yeah,
needed that little bit, and
that next gen car, especially now with the new bottom that they're running on that
yep,
underbody with the rear diffuser and all of these other things, that car needed this much lift to leave the ground.
yep.
And once it hopped once, he was along for the ride.
And honest, if it was flat, I think the fin would have worked the way it was intended to. But because it hit that bump and just sheer momentum, physics,
Yep.
it lifted that car up. It got the air that it needed.
Yeah. And that was the scariest part is that he hit
Head on.
the wall head on upside down.
Yep.
You're talking about in the broadcast. What do you have to hold you in your seat? Your belts. You're
Yep.
all you're hanging there is by your belts, and you're just hoping to God that those things stay buckled.
Yep.
Um, as you're sliding through there. So yeah, that was a scary, scary deal there. But
Mm-hmm.
good to know when they interviewed him, he said it looked a lot worse than it felt in the car.
So the
So
car's doing what it needed to.
they
And
also,
then Burton pointed out too, like with him sliding on the roof, that roof was solid.
yep, yep, that old car would kind of crush a little bit. This
Yep.
one certainly did not.
Yep.
So that's a positive part of that next gen cars that they looked at that and said, we're gonna fix that part.
Car working in the way that it should in some instances, but not in others.
Yep. So definitely when you're talking about hanging from your belts upside down, working the way that it should.
Yep.
So yeah, it just kind of gets turned and car takes off and he ends up there Um, and from there, it was just kind of a overtime race to the end again. And are we going on 3 consecutive weeks of green white checkers?
So funny thing about that, I just heard it on NASCAR radio this morning. I think it's I think it's 4 of 6.
4 of 6.
4 or 6 that we've had overtime. Something like that.
Well, you got Daytona, you got Richmond, Michigan.
Yep.
So that's the last 3. So yeah, coming down the end of these races, so got some unfortunate turns of events.
Yes.
Creates a hell of a storyline. Don't get me wrong.
Yep.
Would prefer to not be in that scenario every single week.
Correct.
Let's let some strategy play out here a little bit, I would say. Um, but yeah, that basically sets up a green white checker run to the end. And this is where ultimately the biggest points shakeup comes. Um, Parker Retzloff, good debut, kept himself out of trouble. Well, not debut, would be a second race, but restricted plate race, keeps himself out of
Yep.
trouble. Gets there and the Chevy ends up pushing the Ford to the win. And hey, you know, you
Well,
listen
there was
to
an interesting comment about that though. I mean,
you listen,
obviously you had to try and get down.
yep,
There's the pick choose of that. But I
yep,
thought, and this might be just this is Freddie Kraft that we're talking about here, stirring the pot.
yep.
But I thought I saw something too that maybe it was he wasn't in the Chevy team meeting.
Yeah. He goes, maybe they should have invited him to the Chevy team meeting. Hey,
I mean, again, you know, Retzloff is trying to win himself a race,
yeah,
and just how the pick went.
he'd have had to given up a roll to
To
go
get
behind
yep,
the gate. So
yep,
at that point, if you're giving up that roll that late in the race, you pretty much made your bed.
correct.
So, when you listen to him and you talk about what he had said, he had to give himself the best opportunity to win, and for all the guys on that 62 team,
Yep.
at what point can you not be a team player anymore? That's where just a little push comes to shove, and you got to for him to try to
You
win in
gotta
this.
go for them. It is winners bring me the steering wheel.
Yeah, for
They're
sure.
not racing for points.
A very very limited schedule at that 62 as well.
Yep.
So yeah, you can't really hate the guy for trying to want to win the race. There's 38 other cars that started the race that wanted to do that too.
Yep. 100%.
So, but no, ultimately, uh, Retzloff kind of shoves the 21 out and he takes the lead, and Harrison Burton gets it done to shake up the playoff battle again.
Big time.
So Burton, Kyle Busch, Christopher Bell, Cody Ware, Ty Gibbs, Bubba, Retzloff, Brad K, Hemrick, and Busher round out your top 10.
Kudos to Rowdy too, and they mentioned this on the broadcast for not just flat out dumping him.
Yep.
And that's kind of that old regime of guys that just you don't wreck a guy to win.
Yep.
And Bush has been in that scenario. He got spun however many years ago for a Coke six for it was probably Pepsi back. No, it was Coke then. He got turned at the tri-oval
Yep. Yeah, from the lead.
from the lead.
So yeah, and going to the conversation of his teammates, as you have to know NASCAR is watching that going, what's racing and what's not. So it's a little
Yeah.
bit more of a magnifying glass on it than anything, especially at that point. But yes, he did come out and say the only chance I had to win was already Wreckham. And then I wasn't
Yep.
going to do that. So honestly, you can respect that, and especially knowing how desperate they are to get into the playoffs, that
Yep.
he now certainly, and he's been in the scenario for a while now, Darlington coming up here next week is going to be his
One to
have to
get in.
win to get in, and that's where they're at for that. So
Yep.
yeah, yeah, very well said. He's dejected, but just said I wasn't going to do it.
Yep.
So,
Kudo, I do got to give a shout out. I was always a Wood Brothers fan, especially when Blaney was in the car. Um, Getting the 100th win for the Wood Brothers.
yep,
It's a cool deal.
yeah, cool, and it gives Harrison Burton a little confidence knowing that he can do it, and that he looking for a ride for next year as well. So that
Yep.
20 will obviously be filled with Josh Berry. So,
Love to see emotion from Jeff up in the booth,
yep,
but also hell of a call by Lee Diffie.
let's talk about Lee Diffie here for a minute.
Hell of a yes. When I saw that Diffie was coming into the booth, love Rick Allen. But man, Diffie's just awesome. He
He's
is so good.
Yeah. It took me a little bit to get used to it. It took me the first stage to kind of settle into it and go,
Yep.
yeah, I'm starting to like this. And then he calls the race so meticulously
Yep.
that even being his first call of late with NASCAR, the runs are coming. He knew where the moves were going to be. He just had that instinct of what was going to happen or where guys needed to be.
He did his research so well.
Yep.
So well.
Whether it was him or whoever set him up or gave him the research
Yep.
to study this, kudos to them.
And he does a lot of the actual play-by-play. He almost calls it like you would a football game.
Yep.
Or even like on the radio broadcast.
Yes.
He does that just so well.
Yeah.
And then again, with Burton come across the line, Jeff, your little boy has done it. Just
Yep.
perfect.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm excited for him. He did a really great job. I'm impressed. There's been mixed reviews of some people that have not enjoyed it, and let's be honest, that's any move you make. There's going to be some people who are going to keep it the way it is. That's always the way it's been.
Yep.
Let's keep it that way. But no, very, very, very good job for him. Very impressive from that standpoint.
Excited to see the playoff run with him.
Yep. Starting next week at Arlington to finish up the regular season.
Yep.
So, as we always do, the vote is finally closed where we've got one that's wrapped up. The race was 24 hours ahead. Going back to the Gluck poll as we do every week for the Cup Series, 92%, 90.2% voted Daytona was a great race on 29,100 votes. So votes a little bit down, but the resounding, yep, that was a good race was very, very clear.
Ranks number 2 out of 16 Daytona races. Last year's fall race was higher.
Okay.
It's the 5th race in the 90% club this year.
Damn.
Of that, and I hope I could find the poll, but I bet you it's actually down. Oop, there it is. Carson Osevar says, I'm not sure on everybody's hustle. Traffic was full of chaos getting to our destination. Well, we chose to avoid the mass chaos and let others pass. I even saw a few planes disguised as cars? Question mark. Maybe check that out before the event next time. My average throttle was 40%. Thanks.
Wow.
Well, and they mentioned that on broadcast too with them drafting, how guys could be half throttle in the pack and still keep speed.
That's where leading that race, you had to toe that line very finely because you were killing your fuel mileage.
And we did not get a super speedway race where we had to worry about fuel mileage. We didn't have a fuel mileage race.
Yep.
The guys were racing.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, we can for sure go back to Daytona with this package and be in a good spot.
Yep. That was a good Daytona race.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. So ultimately what this does, and I'll kind of let you hammer on this a little bit, but this shakes up the playoffs. So you literally have your last place car and owner points and driver points lock himself into the playoffs. So that shakes up the bubble very hard.
Yep. So, I mean, it moves that line down, essentially. So, Bubba, who was looking pretty good to be in, is now out by 21 points. So, Truex.
He had a good finish. Bubba had a good finish. It
Ran a great race.
he finished sixth.
And I don't know how many points he got, but he probably got some stage points to go with it. It just, that line moved. So you put Truex at 58, you got Gibbs at 39, and Buescher at 21. So basically, for Truex and Gibbs, you just need to finish the race for the most part.
Yeah.
You get to Buescher, Wallace, and Chastain, you need to have very good runs with the others doing terrible.
Yeah, I mean, for Truex, he's in a situation of what it comes down to is you can't have Bubba win all the stages and the race.
Correct.
He'd have to have a damn near impeccable day
Yep. And
at
then you get
Darlington, which is traditionally tough.
tough. And then you get to Kyle Busch, Briscoe, and Gillen, who all 100 plus back. I mean, it's must wins from there.
Yep. Yeah. So, yeah, that shakes up that makes the playoff cut line very interesting because now guys are going to be pushing hard. One for stage points, but two when you got to after those stages when you got to put tires on and run long in a stage, it's going to be go and go now.
Yep. And that makes 14 different winners on the year as well.
Yeah. We almost got to 16 different winners.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Almost.
getting there. It could be 15 this week.
Could be.
That'd be crazy. But yeah, man, oh man. Wild. Final thoughts.
Darlington's going to be good.
Yeah, Darlington's going to be wild. That will literally be can't miss racing.
Yep.
And NBC, they'll do a hell of a job. They'll get the cut line graphic up, and as guys move, it will change. And
Yep.
you'll have to have one eye on the screen and the other on the cut line because that's going to change like that by the second.
Yep.
So, yeah, hell of a race. Some scary moments, but ultimately everyone climbs out and live to fight another day. So let's touch on some other winners for the weekend. So let's go ahead and look at the schedule here. Slide down and see who else we got that found themselves in victory lane for this weekend. So Castrol Floor Racing Night in America, Bobby Pierce gets the job done. Maxwell Schultz wins the blue race, but ultimately Ty Majeski wins the title.
With Stenjum.
Yep, the Chase Motorsports
Yep.
47.
Entry.
So yep, he gets her done there. Silver Dollar, Corey Day gets the job done. Xfinity
Night one.
Series. Yep. Ryan Truex making a name for himself in that Xfinity car with Joe Gibbs.
Second you win on the year.
He's bringing himself into the conversation a little bit. Hunt the Front, Super Dirt Series Night 1. Jason Jameson cashes the check. We scroll down a little bit further. We had talked about Madison. Well, Bam Dirt late models. You have Nick Anvilink en route to defend his title. Looking at the World of Outlaw Sprint Car at River Cities, you got Carson Macedo. High Limit Sprint Cars at Silver Dollar. Tanner Thorson gets a night done. Ryan Gustin gets a big payday with World of Outlaw late models at Atomic. USEC Amso Sprint Cars, Justin Grant. Kind of a guy that's been quiet of late in the racing world, but gets a $15,000 payday with Hunt the Front on night 2 is Cameron Marlar. So he's been a little bit more quiet, but shows up and cashes himself a really, really nice payday.
Mm-hmm.
Going down a little further, World of Outlaw Sprint Cars at Red River Valley. Carson Macedo wins that one as well. Corey Day wins at Silver Dollar for the Silver Dollar Nationals with the $100 payday. Badger Midget All Racing at Wilmot. Parker Jones gets it done. Chandler Smith wins the ASA Stars National Tour at Owasso. Illinois native Austin Nason finishes second. So well worth the trip for him to make up some points there. Lane Riggs, first win in the truck series at the Milwaukee Mile.
Yep.
Had a really great truck late in that race. Arca Menards was also at the Milwaukee Mile. William Sawalich dominated that race.
Yes, he did.
He led 149 of 150, I believe, and the one he didn't lead was on a restart. Him and Zilch went
Zilch.
head-to-head. Yeah. So Sawalich wins that race back-to-back years. Scrolling down a little further, you have the IndyCar, NTT IndyCar. Will Power gets it done at Portland International. IMSA Weather Tech. You have Madison Snow. And then Formula One in the Netherlands. Lando Norris gets the job done. So
Big win by him. 22-second lead.
yeah, huge.
Dominated.
Huge.
Two things I want to point out. One, Jeff Taylor won a very long Oxford 250.
Oh
Ran
my
late in the night last night.
Christ.
Uh Bubba Pollard, high praise for that race. One, he says that's about as big as a snowball derby. And two says Jeff Taylor, if he's going to finish second in the Oxford 250, him finishing second to Jeff Taylor, he can accept.
Yeah. So high praise for him.
Yep. Lane Riggs dislocated his shoulder celebrating.
So he said they had talked about that a little bit. He said he had some collarbone issues in 2018, and
Yep.
that's kind of been a thing with that he gave her the old one good stab, and he immediately pulled down. You can see it.
Yep. And then he gets the crew guys to pop it back in for him. I kind of laughed a little bit because, like, obviously everybody's like, oh, what, concerned about him. He
Yep.
gets popped in, and then he just, yeah, and they go back to
Right
celebrating
back at him.
afterwards.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
kind of had to laugh a little bit at that.
Yeah. So that's kind of been a thing for him of late.
Yep.
So, all right. From previous winners to guys who are trying to win this weekend, what do we got for race previews?
Well, we'll start with the World Outlaw Sprint Cars. This is the reschedule of the Houston High Banks Nationals. So they go back to cover this one. They got the High Bank Hustle. They got one of those yet to run, and then they go into the High Bank Nationals themselves. Of note with this, there will be no high limit guys here this weekend because they'll be racing their own weekend, which we talked about that when they announced the initial reschedule. So obviously the car count's going to be down. It's going to be an outlaw show.
Yeah.
Which is a shame because those high limit and outlaw, not joint shows, but when the two of them are racing against each other, it's always good.
Just heightens it more.
Yep.
If you remember, that was the scary ordeal with the flooding when they were there.
With the flooding. Yep.
Yeah. So good to see them finally get that show in. We've talked about it and alluded to it. Cars Tour, late model stocks, and Pro Lates will be at Florence on Friday, August 30th. Can they rebound after the tire dilemma and the bumpers and the new F45 for the late model stocks, but the pros are staying on the ST1s and 2s. So pretty big storyline to follow along there. Kevin Harvick's in the field with the pro late models. To just kind of follow along and see how the night transpires with the new tire and how that all
Let's
plays.
just see some good racing.
Yeah. Absolutely, for sure. So that'll be your Cars Tour preview for the weekend. And the last one, kind of a big one for us here. I'll let you go ahead and hammer this one. I'll look up the entry list really quick.
I was about to say it just came out.
Midwest Tour, if you're listening, kudos to you because your timing is absolutely perfect for our episodes every week.
Yep. So continuing on in the late summer stretch for the Midwest Tour, they're going to be at the Dells Raceway Park for the Jim Sauter Classic 200. Just a tad over $10,000 to win. Ty Majeski was a winner here last year. Of note, Majeski obviously missed Madison, or sorry, he missed. What the hell race was it that he missed? No.
It wasn't State Park, was it? No.
State Park.
Let me look at the schedule.
Hawkeye.
Oh, Hawkeye. Yeah.
Missed Hawkeye.
Yeah.
So he's a race back, but he's still in points contention. Sommers is still in the lead. He's 25 points up on Levon. Majeski's 50 points back, and then Mondyke is 57 points back from there.
Have you looked at this entry list yet?
I had it up, but I haven't really dove into it.
Oh, baby.
Oh, man.
25 cars. So here we go. Fenhouse, DeAngelis, Kraus, Kendall, Nason, Somers, Kaler, Alex Hartwig,
It'll be his second super late model start at the Dells.
21. Vanderdiest, Bergie, Valento, Pete Vandermolen, Matt Henderson,
Henderson,
Trevor Vandermolen, Fredrickson, Seligman, Andrew Morrissey,
Morrissey.
Mondyke, Scholze, James Story, James Lynch, Riley Stenjum, Ryan Farrell, Tristan Swanson, Ty Majeski.
And they'll probably start all of them if it sticks at 25.
If all 25 show up, you could pretty much bet they're going to start all 25 of them.
God, that's a hell of a field.
It's
Hell of a
25
field.
cars, but there are some absolute hammers in there.
Hammers.
Morrissey's been lights out in that 39 this year. And then you have your regulars, DeAngelis, Fenhouse, Majeski. Side note, one that's missing at the moment, Jeff Storm.
Yeah.
He's not on the list. He's an Alive for Five guy.
And he loves the Dells.
Hoosier, question mark. What you doing?
Yeah.
But it's early in the week. It's Monday. Races on Saturday. Wouldn't be surprised if he finds himself on there on Thursday. So
Yep.
Find it hard to believe that he wouldn't be at the Dells. He loves that place.
Correct.
So yeah. Super good race. That'll be a big one for a quick $10,000 payday. So all right. Wrap us up with the fantasy here.
Well, I was gonna say let's cover some other races here real quick. High Limit's actually racing as we speak tonight. They're at Douglas County and they'll also be at Grays Harbor on Wednesday. They'll also be at Skagit should be the Skagit Nationals if I remember correctly. XR Super Series, they're going to be at 300 Raceway for the Yankee Dirt Classic. We talked about the Cars Tour. XR Super Series got a couple races at 300. Xfinity Series is going to be at Darlington as well. Denny Hamlin made an appearance there last year to win that race, so we'll see if he doubles down on that. The Truck Series will also be coinciding with the Midwest Tour at Dells Raceway Park. USAC Silver Crown, they're going to be at the DuQuoin State Fairgrounds. IndyCar, they will be at Milwaukee Mile on Saturday and Sunday. Your boy will be there on Sunday.
Yep.
IRA Sprint Cars, they're going to be at Plymouth. Wheel and Modified, NASCAR Wheel and Modified, they're at Oswego. Lucas Oil, they'll be at Portsmouth. The USAC Midgets, they're going to be at Angel Park for the Fireman Nationals. I wish I could be there, but I probably will not make that one.
Yeah.
What else do we got here? Arca Menards will also be at DuQuoin. Formula One will be at Monza this weekend. The CRA series will be at Winchester for some twin 50s.
Yep.
And then Tundra, we got some Monday racing. Tundra will be at Golden Sands. I'll be at that one as well. And then the XR Super Series will be at Kokomo.
Yes, sir.
So that's what you're looking at for the week ahead.
The Labor Day weekend, the extended list of holiday specials for that. So we want to go ahead and make some race picks.
Do you want to do race picks or fantasy?
Oh, fantasy. I'm sorry. I got a little ahead of myself there. I'm sorry.
So obviously Daytona wreaked havoc on everybody, including ourselves.
Yep.
But the Gas Man ended up winning the week at 155 points. Kellen, you were second at 135. Gas Man's Girl was at 130. Dietz 127. I was at 121, so some points were made up on me. Sylvie's Pit Picks 115, and Kurt Busch, Dan, I don't think submitted anything. He had 34.
So the funny part is, either I forgot to mention to my fiance that there was a race. She did not set a lineup, so she was in striking distance without a single pick 'em.
Yikes. Wow.
I feel really bad because I looked at her lineup. I go, take Hamlin rack. I go, take Hamlin. And she goes, wait, there's a race. I go,
uh-oh.
So,
boy.
I mean, it wasn't a terrible week considering she didn't make a single pick 'em.
Yeah.
but
Could have been a lot better week.
correct.
Jesus.
I'll take the blame for that one.
Yeah, boy. Race picks. So I lost a little bit of my lead as well. So I'm sitting at 14-15. Cam is sitting at 13-13, and then you are sitting at 12-30 for the year right now.
Basically 100 points out.
Pretty much.
Yep, 100.
It's 100 points between each of us.
Well, so
Although because you had a terrible week last week with Stenhouse, you get to go first for Darlington.
so that second pick column, because we're
Yes or no?
Yep, we're gonna do it. And
Okay.
I've got the data from the third guy here for both
Okay.
the Cup Series, and he'll get his pick for the Midwest Tour because he's first
Sure.
for the Midwest Tour.
Sure.
I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna go ahead and for Darlington, I'm gonna go ahead and take Denny Hamlin.
Good pick. I'm going to stick at the Toyota camp. I'm glad you took Hamlin because this leaves mine open. I'm taking Reddick.
Okay. And then Cam's availability, he texted me his 3 lists, his picks in order of availability. Number
Oh,
oh my Lanta. Hang on now.
for those that are listening, speaking of Cam, he is currently loading into our session here.
It is his audio is connecting. He said technology has been a nightmare. Suppose if you wouldn't be on the beach in Hawaii, you wouldn't have this goddamn problem.
Don't take vacations, damn it.
Yeah, no kidding. Can you hear us?
Ooh.
Yeah, locked in.
Oh, look at that bright
boy.
sunshine out there,
Yeah.
too. Good God.
Christ almighty. Hey, just so you know, in case you're wondering, the heat index here is about 110 degrees. So it feels like we're in Hawaii, but we're just in Wisconsin.
It actually is not. I mean, it was yesterday. It was cloudy and rainy. Wasn't like scorching hot. And to be honest, it's what 80 degrees here right now. So it's 85, and it's got a nice breeze.
So
It's primo.
we were just making some race picks, and I was reading the availability. I literally said Cameron's picks in order of availability.
And then
What
you
were
popped
they?
up.
Yup, and then you popped up. So his 3 in order were Larson, Reddick, and Logano. So he's gonna take Larson. You confirming
right.
Larson?
On money.
He's taking the 5.
All right.
Okay.
I mean, it's a track that fits him. It was him or Reddick, 2 guys that just ripped the wall. And you go for broke, you either win it or you finish last. So
Correct.
Yep.
that's what we're rolling with.
Okay. You texted me your pick just in time. You get to go first for the Midwest Tour at the Dells for 10 grand.
It's typically when you're going first, that means you're not doing so hot. So don't like the
Well, this is snake draft to boot.
Snake draft, yeah.
okay, true, yeah.
We picked already. So I picked Hamlin and Van Grohl.
I picked Reddick, and then by de facto, you picked Larson.
Yep.
Got it. Yeah, well, I texted Kellen. I might as well go Gabe Summers. Kellen was just telling me the other day about how good he is at the Dells. So
That's not a bad pick.
Kellen
Before
texted me. Well, there'll be another three guys: Summers, Fenhouse, and Majeski that are always.
Okay, so that brings up my point here. Are we sticking with the house rule if it's Majeski off the table?
Yes, because he'll practice and qualify.
Then I will take Fenhouse.
Okay.
Okay. Your boy Kraus.
I'll take the 9 of Derek Kraus.
All right.
So
that'll work. We got it. We got a double dose of picks this week.
Oh. Twice the opportunity to close the gap on that 100-point lead that he's got on me right now. So, man, Cam, the timing. Hey, you roll in and we're making race picks and getting this thing wrapped up.
Yeah, we were going in the wrong direction there as we were trying to explore beach. I'm watching the cellular service and I'm like, oh, I'll just fire these texts off to Kellen just to make sure.
Yep.
And the bars are going 3, 2, 1, 0. So and then I'm firing off a couple text messages to Kellen, and you just get that blue that doesn't ever deliver on the top of the
Yep.
iPhone. I'm like, all right.
So, we're gonna say this now because Cam has been the facilitator of the whole scenario of reaching out and aligning the stars. We just need to confirm a time for Monday. We will have our first guest on the podcast on Monday. We're gonna leave it a mystery. We put a little teaser out on Twitter and Instagram. So if you have guesses or want to take a shot in the dark at who you think it's gonna be, I think there's a good crowd that's going to enjoy this one. It's going to be fun. I'm just going to put it that way. I'm going to have a lot of fun doing it. It'll be a blast. But you can expect the Labor Day special to be a Labor Day special. And we'll have our first confirmed and entered, hosted guest on the podcast. So we're excited. It'll be fun. We'll just see where it goes. If you got people you want us to have, you let us know. Or if you're somebody watching this and you got some racing knowledge you want to get out here, we'd be more than happy to have a conversation with you. So that's the big news for the coming week. So stay tuned for that one next week. Tuesday or Wednesday, that'll come out depending on the day we record. We just got to hammer out those details with the long vacation weekend. So, but you can expect that for next week. So Cam did the facilitating of that whole deal. So
there you go.
Sweet. Well, that's a wrap.
Yeah, I'll get some. I was gonna say that one will be a doozy, and then I'll get some. It'll be a fun one. We'll get some good stuff lined up for that. Could almost consider him an insider as well. So not to totally.
Yeah, there's our little hint.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that. But
let's put it this way. He's got a lot of good intel.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I'm excited. But well, that wraps up the 48th. The 48th rendition of the Tuesday Track Talk. Next week we bring you guest one, episode 49. I'll leave that. Maybe that's a hint. I don't know. That might be a hint for you. But anyways, that wraps up 48. As always, like, comment, subscribe, smash the bell. You get notifications to get all of the shorts from At the Track, all the race previews that come out. You can be the first one to see it and know that when we have videos coming out, their lives going up, that you can be the first one to be in. So again, as always, we appreciate the listens. But until then, we'll see you all next week for Tuesday Track Talk, episode 49.